I would like to call the regularly scheduled meeting for the Village of Tinley Park Plan Commission to order. Please stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lori, could you please take the roll?
Commissioner Gaskell.
Present.
Commissioner Gatto. Commissioner Hamilton.
Here.
Commissioner Manny.
Present.
Commissioner Merrick.
Here.
Commissioner Sepisi.
Here.
Commissioner Stocklos.
Here.
Acting Chair West.
Here.
Chairman Gray, not present.
So a quorum is present. We will now move on to communications. Staff, are there any communications?
Yes. So first things first, Chairman Gray couldn't make the meeting, so Commissioner West is going to be chairing the meeting today. Also, I want to introduce everyone to J.D. Barrett. He is our new management analyst. So Jarrell left us in January. He's taking his place. So I believe he was appointed Tuesday, and he wanted to get a running start. So he's joining us tonight to see how Plan Commission works.
Nice.
So afterwards, if you want to say hi, he'll be here for the whole meeting. And then finally, on some less good news, Kayla West actually is going to be stepping down from the Plan Commission. Her last meeting will be April 18th. So thank you so much for your service both times you were on Plan Commission.
It's been a pleasure and an honor.
Thanks for sticking through the next month here, and thank you for co-chairing.
Yes. And on that note, is that the end of communications?
Yes.
Okay. We need to have a motion from somebody to appoint me temporary acting
Chair Pro Tem.
Chair Pro Tem.
Motion to nominate Sheriff Pro Tem.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Sepisi, seconded by Commissioner Gaskell.
You could just do all in favor.
All in favor?
Aye.
We will now move on to the approval of minutes. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the March 21st, 2024 Plan Commission meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Stocklos, seconded by Commissioner Sepisi. All of those in favor of approving the March 21st, 2024 minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is carried. So item 1 on the agenda is a public hearing to consider recommending that the village board grant a special use permit for congregate elderly housing to operate a supportive living facility to the petitioner, Ari Haas, on behalf of Tinley Court SLP Realty LLC at 16301 Bremen Town Road in the R6 Medium Density Residential Zoning District. Site plan architectural approval is also being considered at the meeting. May I have a motion to open the public hearing?
Motion.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Gaskell, seconded by Commissioner Sepisi. I'm sorry. Stocklos. My apologies, sir. I will ask for a voice vote. All those in favor of continuing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is carried. Before we proceed, I would like to note that I have received certification of the public hearing notice as being published in the local newspaper as required by state law. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter will be sworn in before they speak, but after the staff's presentation. Staff, if you could please proceed with your presentation at this time.
Okay, so this project is for Tinley Court. It's a senior living building that has been in the village for a long time, since the 70s. A new owner has purchased the building and is doing extensive renovations, and they're going to operate it as a supportive living community, whereas it previously was a senior apartment complex. So it's 16301 Bremen Town Road, it's right around the corner. It's a 3.74 acre site. It's a 2-story building in the center, and then it has multiple 1-story wings, and it is currently owned by the petitioner, Tinley Court SLP Realty LLC. It's zoned R6 medium density residential. So a special use is required in the R6 district to do a congregate elderly housing development. That's what supportive living is considered in the zoning ordinance. We're also doing site plan and architectural approval. The petitioner is proposing several site improvements as well as addressing some concerns with paving and the parking lot and all that. And then they're also doing extensive landscaping, removing a lot of what is dead out there right now, cut down tree stumps they're replacing or removing and then replacing with new canopy trees. But they are seeking a waiver for relief from the full landscape ordinance because it is a redevelopment project. So here's the new site plan. They've relocated accessible parking to be closest to the main entrance. That's where that green arrow is pointing at the bottom left. They've added 2 outdoor areas for recreation for the residents. One is in the back near the loading area that was currently being used as a patio, and they're proposing enclosing that and making it nicer. And then they're adding a memory care fenced-in area in the front of the building. Both of these improvements are indicated with the red arrows. I said they're repaving the parking lot, and they're doing a lot of concrete repairs to eliminate trip hazards on the walkways. And there's a failing retaining wall in the back of the property right now, and they're proposing to replace that as well. There was also several code enforcement issues that they have rectified. Here's the landscape plan. They're adding several canopy trees. They're adding base plantings around the perimeter of the building. They're adding street trees, and they're adding sign base landscaping, which is required in the landscape ordinance. And importantly, they're going all around the building, even in the rear, so the residents that are using that rear patio will have some nice landscaping, and then residents will also have nice views out the individual unit windows with new landscaping. And I have the standards.
You wanted to read these? You wanted to review these, all of them?
You do your discussion now, and then we go back.
So what I've got now is thank you. Is the petitioner present? Is that? Okay. Thank you. Is the petitioner present? Yes. Would you like to speak?
Sure.
Okay. If you'll approach the lectern so we may swear you in. Please state your name and write it down, and I'll swear you in.
Sure, my name is Ari Haas. It's A-R-I, last name H-A-A-S.
Okay. If you'll please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the evidence that you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please proceed.
First of all, thank you, Michael, pulling together all the information, presenting our project. He explained, I guess, my part here is to address any Q&A, questions about the project. I'll be happy to share a lot of what we've been doing. I would say a good portion of what Michael mentioned is either already well underway or it's already been done, some of those improvements. But just to give a brief overview what we're doing, if this is new to anyone, essentially this was Tinley Court, independent/assisted living. It wasn't licensed assisted living, but it was about that level of care for about 40 plus years. My partners and I bought the project last year with the intention of, it definitely needs quite a bit of renovation. The project essentially was going downhill since, I would say, a year or two before COVID, and the previous owner explained to me that COVID essentially knocked them out of the box, and their occupancy kind of slowly went from 95 to 80 to 70. Eventually, when we bought it, I think they were down to 50%. So I'm not sure what the ultimate would have been, but likelier than not, it would have probably ended up closing. But it was really a good opportunity for what we do. My company and my partners and I, our particular specialty is the middle between independent living and nursing home, and that's kind of the sweet spot. It's called supportive living. It's a program specifically in the state of Illinois. It's really a terrific program in that it's a really good alternate for nursing homes. When somebody does need a nursing home and that level of extensive care, of course, it's the right thing. but too often people were ending up in nursing homes for reasons other than why they really needed to be there, because there was no alternative. So what we've done with Tinley Court, and now having HFS, which is Illinois licensing for us, which is the Department of Health and Family Services, and we are licensed under supportive living. And essentially, it gathers together what was going on before. What was happening is residents would pay rent to the building, and they would then supplement services and nursing care from maybe a home health company, get some Meals on Wheels, all sorts of different resources. And what we're able to do with supportive living is essentially bring it all in-house. So that's just to bring it all back in a short summary. It's essentially that. It's bringing all the services, coordinating it. We'll have a nursing staff on site. It's not like a nursing home where we have 20. Just give you a staff ratio, for example. If we fill up with 120 residents, we're talking between 8 and 10 nursing staff members at, peak shift. Again, this is just a broad estimate, but to give you an idea, and we have meals, housekeeping, maintenance. Essentially, it's a low-needs assisted living type program. So I'd be happy to answer any kind of questions about the physical upgrades. I'm sure some of you have been hearing from the staff and I guess from some of the inspectors coming out. The building was, we thought, in somewhat disrepair. It ended up, it was a little worse than we thought. That's why we have that big line item on projects called contingency. But we've covered that and then some, but we've made some, at the end of it all, we're essentially getting a new building. I mean, practically a maintenance-free one, which is what we were talking today. Spent the day finishing up some of the choices there. Just the highlights, new roof entirely through and through, all the HVAC systems, both common areas and resident rooms are new. The wiring to every single resident room, we ran new piping, new electric. We found there were deficiencies in, I think there was initially 25 or 30 rooms. We figured that deterioration that took place in those rooms was probably only a few years away from happening everywhere else. So we kind of preemptively did them all. We added new heating systems for corridors that weren't there before. And like we pointed out, we have landscaping plans. Unfortunately, a lot of the money we have to spend on landscaping isn't so much as pretty, but it's more addressing some standing water issues. I understand it's an issue in certain parts in the village. The back of the property angles towards the pond, so that's not an issue. But in the front, we're going to be putting in some French drain systems, pop-up drains, try to gather the water and direct it to where it could be useful, towards the shrubbery, flowers, etc. After all is said and done, it's going to be a tremendous upgrade. The physical part of the building remains the same. From the outside, it'll look prettier, neater, and cleaner, but if nobody's looking into it, so to say, they wouldn't notice that much has changed there. So we're looking to continue being, a good citizen in the village. We think it's a great resource, and happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you. So next, I'll see if the commission has any comments or discussion. Commissioner Gaskell?
Nothing for me right now, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner Manny?
No comments from me. Thank you.
Commissioner Merrick?
No, none from me. Thanks.
Commissioner Hamilton?
Yeah, I just have one question, probably for the staff. Why do they have to come back to the planning commission when it was already a senior center?
A special use is tied to ownership. So since the owner changed, they had to come get a new special use. In addition, like Mr. Haas mentioned, the way that the care is changing from individual residents contracting their own care to the facility providing the care also changes the nature of what the congregate elderly housing means in this setting. So that's why there's a special use.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Sepisi?
Yeah, just one thing, I didn't notice it when we were looking at the views. There's gonna be no real change in the footprint of this facility, is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah, so there should be no, I mean, the parking's gonna be pretty much the same, and
Yeah, actually, we're gonna improve the parking lot. I didn't mention that, Michael and the staff had recommended, initially it was gonna be patch and replace, and then they recommended a 2-inch grind at the minimum. I think that's one of the conditions. We're going ahead and doing a 4-inch grind, which is even better, so. We'll have a new parking lot, new drive, certain things, it's one of those, the might as wells. So, it's gonna be at least to the standard and then some, so, thank you for your question.
Okay, Commissioner Stoklos?
Was there any other issues involved with code that they had to upgrade, like sprinkler systems or, 'cause I didn't see anything in the packet about, any code issues that they had to address?
Yeah, so a lot of what's going on here is really tied to its building permit and less to zoning conditions, but they've done extensive upgrades and I believe a brand new sprinkler system or upgraded
I
sprinkler
think
system.
the sprinklers were adjusted, but I think it was the water shutoffs on the domestic, the plumbing inspector requested, and we complied with shutoffs for each unit individually. I think initially it had been for groups of units. I know the line item was a few $100,000. So I know it was a big one, but it was one of those that was, I guess, deficient in the old code of the building. And I guess once we were opening walls, that's kind of how it goes. So at the end, we'll be better off for it. Maintenance-wise, it'll be a lot easier to deal with issues. But that was probably the one glaring one. The other was the electric that I mentioned, but we went ahead and rather than try to patch it and fix it and then have code questions at every step, we just, put in a brand-new one. So hope that's answers your question.
Yeah, a lot of the, we allowed the permit review to run concurrently to the entitlement process. So the building official, fire marshal, plumber, electrician, they've all reviewed the plans that have been submitted. And so everything is going to be up to code. The permit is almost complete. There's a few comments outstanding, but otherwise, once we go through the entitlement, they'll have a permit and they can begin the interior work.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to testify to the materials presented at this hearing?
Acting Chair West, you can also give comment if you wish.
I have no comments, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody in the audience? Okay. Given that there's nobody to speak on this one, staff, will you please present the standards?
Sure. So standards are pretty straightforward for the special use. Because the building's already there, we don't anticipate any real impact to the surrounding neighborhood. It has utilities all set up. A lot of the things that we would consider with new development aren't really happening here, so we see no issues with the special use. I can run through them individually if you would like, but I have them on screen here, and then I have a second slide as well. One thing to note, there is a potential for an increase in EMS calls just because the level of care is increasing, so the level of independence is slightly decreasing. When you have an elderly population, the reliance on EMS is higher in any context, so that could be one potential impact to the surrounding community, but otherwise, no anticipated issues.
I would say too, we did contact our EMS system. They verified they didn't have any issues with the change from the senior housing to the supportive living, so.
And then I have the standards for the site plan up. These are, we usually don't run through these one by one, but they've met all of the requirements that we have. Architecture, we didn't really touch on it, but I think there was a code enforcement violation for some of the exterior deterioration, and they have fixed all that, so. Architecture standards, and then I have the motions up.
Okay. May I have a motion regarding the special use?
I'd like to make a motion to recommend that the village board grant a special use permit for congregate elderly housing to operate a supportive living facility to the petitioner, Ari Haas, on behalf of Tinley Court SLP Realty LLC at 16301 Brementown Road in the R6 Medium Density Residential Zoning District, in accordance with the plans submitted and adopt the findings of fact and special use conditions as proposed in the April 4th, 2024 staff report.
Second.
I hear Commissioner Sepisi make a motion and Commissioner Gaskell second. Lori, please call roll.
Commissioner Gaskell,
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton,
Yes.
Commissioner Manny,
Yes.
Commissioner Merrick,
Yes.
Commissioner Sepisi,
Yes.
Commissioner Stoklos,
Yes.
Acting Chair West.
Yes. The motion is carried. The second motion, may I have a motion regarding the site plan and architectural approval?
I'd like to make a motion to grant site plan and architectural approval to the petitioner Ari Haas on behalf of Tinley Court SLP Realty LLC to allow for the rehabilitation of 16301 Brementown Road to operate a supportive living facility in accordance with the plan submitted and adopt the findings of fact and conditions as proposed in the April 4th, 2024 staff report.
Second.
I hear the motion from Commissioner Gaskell, seconded by Commissioner Manny. Lori, please call roll.
Commissioner Gaskell.
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton,
Yes.
Commissioner Manny,
Yes.
Commissioner Merrick,
Yes.
Commissioner Sepisi,
Yes.
Commissioner Stoklos,
Yes.
Acting Chair West.
Yes. The motion is carried, so this item will go to the village board on May 7th.
Very well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate the time and look forward to inviting you for the grand opening. Take care, good night.
Thank you.
Okay. Item 2 on the agenda is a public hearing to consider recommending that the village board grant a special use permit for outdoor storage to the petitioner, Mohammed Hamdan, on behalf of OBM Rentals LLC, doing business as Salinas Pizza and Catering in the MU1 or mixed-use Duvan Drive overlay zoning district. Site plan approval is also being considered at this meeting. May I have a motion to open the public hearing?
Motion.
Second.
And was that Commissioner Sepisi or Commissioner Stark?
No.
Okay. I hear Commissioner Gaskell make a motion, seconded by Commissioner Stoklos. I will ask for a voice vote. All those in favor of continuing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is carried. Before we proceed, I would like to note that I've received certification of the public hearing notice as being published in the local newspaper as required by state law. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter will be sworn in after the staff's presentation. Staff, if you could please proceed with your presentation at this time.
Thank you, Acting Chair.
Did we have to close the other public hearing?
Yeah, do a motion to close the other
Before
public
we-
hearing.
Thank
Before
you.
we vote.
Yeah.
This time, yeah, you're supposed to close it before we go over the standards.
My
but-
apologies.
So we could make a motion to close.
Back up to that point, yeah.
You need a motion to close it?
Oh, I make a motion to close the previous
public
meeting.
There you go.
Okay.
And I'll second.
So I hear a motion to close the previous public hearing by Commissioner Gaskell, seconded by Commissioner Sepisi. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. Okay, staff, if you would like to proceed.
All right, thank you. So the property known as Salinas Pizza and Catering is at the northern part of the Duvan Drive Industrial Park on 175th. This is located just west of Harlem Avenue. So this is a 0.7 acre site and about 145 feet of frontage. There's an existing building and existing outdoor storage already on site that was approved via a previous special use permit. There is a rear yard area that is currently fenced in. It is in the, as I said, the Duvan Drive, which is known as MU1 type of zoning, and the surrounding areas are R6 to the west, and then as well as the MU1 immediately west and south. So here is a kind of a Google bird's eye view of looking south. So we're seeing the front of the property, and the multicolored storage containers you can see are towards the rear. And the special use permit that was previously granted was to the previous owner of this property back in 2011, and it allowed for 7 storage containers. So coming in with the new owner, he was unaware that this was not compliant, and we because there are 9 actually on site. So we are taking the petitioner through due to that. There were also, as part of that previous 2011 approval, certain site improvements in the front and the rear that would have to be met. So not 100% of those were met. So here is the proposed site plan that the petitioner has provided with staff's kind of notes, markups showing what is where. These storage containers, just to note, they're your standard 40 feet by 8 feet by 8 feet containers. So this map is oriented with north to the right, so you can see them at the rear, not up against the property line, but slightly set in. Just to know, there is an existing fence, an 8-foot tall, solid privacy fence that surrounds this rear area, and the front of it runs roughly along the frontage of the building with a rolling gate. So all of that is existing. The fence is in good condition from 2023. So what the petition is proposing to help improve the site is to be able to make sure that everything is orderly put in. Along with the storage containers, these containers will provide party equipment rental, right? So things like bouncy houses, tents, the carts to transport this equipment, et cetera. So to weigh down the tents, there will be water tank weights. So that's what you see just below where those storage containers are. So those are all proposed to be in an orderly fashion and to help provide screening, as I said before, with the 8-foot fence, that's already existing. Staff had suggested to provide an evergreen buffer installed, so you can see that going further down. There will be, I believe, 2 box trucks on the site, so we noted where that would be. Going towards the middle of the site and the green surrounding upper left, that's just improvements to provide grass and then mulch around these 3 cooling condenser units. Going further to the front, along with the shed removal, there are brick pavers close to 175th. So the condition of that was not the best, so those are being removed and reseeded for grass. The only other notable 2 things are really regarding the circulation and parking. So quantity of parking really isn't changing very much, very minor. You do see that on the front of the building, there's angled parking as existing. It's going to be restriped with an additional access aisle. Also, the site is configured so it is a 2-way access from 175th, and that is to also allow the vehicles coming from the back storage to exit the site easily. But because of the angled parking that already exists in the front, those vehicles tend to exit out of the property adjacent. So the petitioners worked with staff to get with that adjacent property owner. They've signed a document for cross-access, and that will be recorded. That concludes staff presentation. I have standards up on screen, and the petitioner, Mo Hamdan, and his architect are here.
Okay. Thank you. Is the petitioner present? Would you like to approach the lectern so you may be sworn in? Sure. I'll have you state your name and write it down.
It's written down already. Sorry. Okay, my name is Mohammed Hamdan.
If you'll please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the evidence that you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please proceed.
Hello. My name is Mohammed Hamdan, and I've been a resident of Tinley Park since 2008. And actually, I was a customer of Selena's. And I called one day, and nobody answered. 2 weeks later, I found out that it was for sale. So I talked to my brothers, and we bought the business. But unfortunately, you know, the previous owner that we bought it from moved the business from Tinley to Frankfurt. So actually, the business is operational in Frankfurt. But, you know, we ended up doing a deal with him, and we bought the building back to bring the business back to Tinley. We've been in the business for a year and a half already, and I would say 85% of our customers are still Tinley customers, so we're very excited to bring it back to Tinley. And I think this is the only obstacle that's in the way to reopen, is those storage units and the special permit use that we're looking for here today. So, and I'm here to answer any questions, so that's about it.
Thank you.
Yep.
So I will see if the commission has any questions or comments. Commissioner Gaskell,
No comments.
Commissioner Manny,
No comments.
Commissioner Merrick,
No.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Just curious, are you not operating now, or you're operating out of Frankfurt?
Out of Frankfurt,
Okay. And then you'll bring the operations back to Tinley once this is settled?
correct.
Commissioner Sepisi.
Are you gonna reopen the pizza site in Tinley also?
Yeah, we're just gonna reopen Salinas Pizza and Catering with everything that provided previously, or in the past. So,
Commissioner Stoklos.
The storage containers, are you removing the two that were supposed to be gone from the last time that Salinas was in here?
no, actually, that's what the petition, you know, that we
Well,
added
it
the two.
wasn't clear as to, it was mentioned that there was two more than what was supposed to be there. So that was my question, if there was supposed to be two less before, why are we keeping those two extra ones there?
So the approval was for 7, and you are correct, there are 9 existing. A special use permit for outdoor storage is similar to many of the other special use permits. They do not run with the land, they run with the petitioner and how they choose to operate the business. So when Mr. Hamdan bought the property, he was unaware of this whole process and that it was not in compliance. So the request here is a fresh special use permit request. He's not proposing any increase in the storage units. They will be in the same location that
So
they
we're
are. They will not
keeping
be
the same
stacked.
amount.
It will be one row of 9.
Yeah, it's a brand new, we understand it's the same business and the same thing going in there, and he wants to keep what's there. So it is just a brand new site plan. He's also providing improvements the previous site plan didn't have. So he's gone above and beyond what the previous owner was supposed to do to provide that screening, because there are the apartments to the east. So they're providing that extra screening, and the fact of the matter is the business ran with those 9 units, those 9 things there, and he's like, well, I just want to keep that there, so.
Is that what the special use permit is gonna allow is 9?
Yes.
Correct. What the site and development that you see here that they provided is what the special use is gonna allow.
So you were just throwing us a curveball saying there was 2 more than that was allowed
We'd like to
previously.
give the full history of the project.
They have to keep us on our toes.
Making sure we're listening and reading through our information that we're getting.
And then do you have any additional comments?
I'm good.
Okay, and then I don't have any questions or comments.
Okay.
Is there anyone in the audience wishing to testify to the materials presented at this hearing? Sir? Yes.
I don't have a.
Oh, will you please come to the lectern?
Oh, I don't have nothing to testify, but I actually have a question.
Sure. Sir, if you,
Still got
we'll have to have you sign in,
Thank you.
state your name and sign in, and I'll swear you in.
My name is Hector Gomez, resident of Tinley. There is no pen in here.
Oh,
Thank you.
and Mr. Gomez, please raise your right hand. Oh, I'm sorry, once you're done writing. Do you swear or affirm that you are about to, what the evidence you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, please
Okay.
proceed.
Well, basically, it's just a question maybe for the new owners of this pizza place. I have been there many times before when they were here in Tinley for many years, but last time, it has been a while, long time ago. And I just wonder, all this sounds nice and cool, if you will, but what, if anything, will be done to improve the quality of a place like this coming back to Tinley? Because I recall that last time that I was there, it wasn't good at all. That's all. So maybe the new owners can comment on that.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
Yes.
I can send you a pizza from Frankfurt, so you can try it. I mean, we have changed a lot of recipes that we took over. We did maintain the staff, most of the staff that was from Salinas, and actually some of the staff have been with Salinas for 25 years. So, but yeah, I mean, everything that we do is improved, and, you know, we just hire right staff. Unfortunately, so there are two owners previous. I'm sure you guys might be familiar with Neil, was the original owner. He owns SIP now in Oak Park. And then another guy bought it from him in December of 2019. And 3 months later, COVID hit, so kind of thing went into, you know, not good, if you will. And then he moved to Frankfurt for some reason, I don't know why. And they, you know, a lot of people were just complaining about the quality of the food. But, you know, we've been in business for 1.5 years, and thankfully it's been, you know, on a steady, you know, rise. So, fine.
Well, if you bring it back, we wish you nothing but success.
I appreciate that.
But for us as local residents, the quality of the food has to be there.
Absolutely.
It just has to be there.
As I said, you know, we can
So,
provide you some
thank you,
food from
we wish you
Frankfurt.
success. Thank you so much.
No problem, thank you. Anything else?
Is there anybody else from the public who'd like to speak? Okay. Staff, will you please present the standards?
Thank you.
Or no, do we need to, is now when we need to
Now
close?
is when you close the public
I had
hearing.
it further down. May I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
I'm sorry, who was this?
It doesn't matter.
It does.
Now you got both.
Okay, I hear a motion from Commissioner Sepisi and a second from Commissioner Gaskell?
No.
Commissioner Stocklos. I'm sorry, you three gentlemen sound a lot alike to me.
Mo, Larry, and Curly.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Hearing none, the motion carries. Staff, now you may please present the standards.
Thank you, Acting Chair. I have the standards up on screen, the first 3 of them, so staff has drafted them in support of the special use. In a nutshell, regarding public health, safety, and whether it is injurious to the use, and whether it impedes normal and orderly development, staff responds positively to all of this. It will not affect the day-to-day operations of the current business. The storage containers serve as safekeeping for the rental equipment. There will be a fence with a gate that's set back within the property for the security, and screening will help for the surrounding properties, again with the fence and evergreen arbor vitae. The use will not encroach onto existing or adjacent properties. And the rest of the standards are up on screen. Adequate utilities, adequate ingress and egress. We note the 2-way driveway to the north and cross access to the west. Regarding other regulations, petitioner notes those will be met. And regarding economic development, the proposed use will help reopen a business and will include food carryout and delivery along with equipment rentals. I have standards for site plan also up on screen. Again, this is in staff report, and I have a motion up on screen.
Okay, can I please have a motion regarding the site plan approval?
I'd
Oh,
make a
I'm-
motion to recommend that the village board grant a special use permit to the petitioner, Mohammed Hamdan, on behalf of the OBM Rentals LLC, DBA Salinas Pizza and Catering, to allow for open storage of 9 storage containers and 28 water tank tent weights for the property located at 7551 175th Street in the MU1 Mixed Use Duvan Drive Overlay Zoning District, according to the submitted plans, and adopt the findings of fact and conditions of a special use as listed in the April 4, 2024 staff report.
Second.
Okay. And I do apologize, I should have said the motion for special use, we'll do site plan next. So I have
Do we
a,
have to close the public hearing first? before-
we already did, yeah.
Sorry.
So we've got a motion from Commissioner Hamilton and seconded by Commissioner Manny. Lori, please call the roll.
Commissioner Gaskell,
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton,
Yes.
Commissioner Manny,
Yes.
Commissioner Merrick,
Yes.
Commissioner Sepisi,
Yes.
Commissioner Stoklos,
Yes.
Acting Chair West.
Yes, the motion is carried. Now may I have a motion regarding the site plan? Need the next, yeah.
I'd like to make a motion to grant the petitioner Mohammed Hamdan on behalf of OBM Rentals LLC, doing business as Salinas Pizza and Catering, site plan approval for the proposed changes at 7551 175th Street in the MU1 mixed-use Devon Drive overlay zoning district in accordance with the plans and conditions outlined in the April 4th, 2024 staff report.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Sepisi, seconded by Commissioner Gaskell. Lori, please call the roll.
Commissioner Gaskell,
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton,
Yes.
Commissioner Manny,
Yes.
Commissioner Merrick,
Yes.
Commissioner Sepisi,
Yes.
Commissioner Stoklos,
Yes.
Acting Chair West.
Yes, the motion is carried, and it will go to the village board on May 7th. Okay, item 3 on the agenda is a public hearing to consider recommending that the village board grant a special use permit for a substantial deviation to the Tinley Crossings Corporate Center planned unit development to change land uses at 4 of the properties within the development to the petitioner, 8201 T Cross LLC, in the M1 PD General Manufacturing Tinley Crossings Corporate Center PUD zoning district. May I have a motion to open the public hearing?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
I had Commissioner Stoklos made the motion, seconded by Commissioner Gaskell. I will ask for a voice vote. All those in favor of continuing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is carried. Before we proceed, I would like to note that I've received certification of the public hearing notice as being published in the local newspaper as required by state law. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter will be sworn in before they speak, but after the staff's presentation. Staff, if you could please proceed with your presentation at this time.
Thank you, Acting Chair. So this request here tonight is for 4 properties located in the Tinley Crossings planned unit development. So I have up in the upper left of the screen a zoomed-in aerial that shows which of the 4 properties these are. This is along the south side of 183rd Street, a little west of 80th Avenue. You know, the larger context of the area has the Rock Island Railway running to the west and I-80 running south. So the 4 addresses are a group of 2 buildings, 8201, 183rd, 8200, 185th. They're 2 L-shaped buildings. And then on the east of that, across from an open parking area, are the other 2 buildings, 8151 and 8101, 183rd. The easternmost one is owned by Comcast. The one next to that is by 183rd Street Tinley Park LLC. And then the 2 buildings to the west are owned by 8201 T Cross LLC. So there are multiple owners on these properties. It is all part of a larger planned unit development that includes that and surrounds that. As far as the PUD's history, this was approved back in 1998. The whole PUD is a 175-acre corporate center and industrial park. As far as zoning, the underlying zoning for that is the M1 General Manufacturing. So up on screen, and just as in the staff report, I note what the zoning code defines as general manufacturing, generally related to industrial activities that have modern environmental effects. The ordinance that was previously approved, just to note, also stated that the eastern 12 acres, as you go towards 80th Avenue, have a different allowance that are more meant as ancillary commercial business service types of uses. So that language on screen is the same as what is quoted in that ordinance. So here is a PUD map staff has prepared for this request that clearly shows the boundaries again, 80th Avenue being the far eastern point. And then here is showing the surrounding zoning to that area. So R3 residential and R2 residential were to the north. Our office restricted industrial, commercial is to the east, and the PUDs to the south are the North Star Business and Mercury Business. Also further to south is, a bit of it is out of our village and rather inside the village of Mokina, and to the west was ORI. And then as far as that's for the whole PUD. As far as these 4 properties, really they're just surrounded by this M1 within the PUD. There's a small sliver of it that does touch the residential up to the north on the other side of 183rd. So regarding the location and the breakdown of spaces, these buildings are all multi-tenant except for the Comcast building, but they could be combined or divided to multi or single tenant. For the 2 western buildings, 18201 183rd and 8200 185th, that petitioner has provided a tenant list that was part of the packet. It just has a very short 1 or 3 word descriptions of those types of uses. The petitioner noted part of the request does relate to trying to improve vacancy issues at the properties. So up on screen are numbers on the vacancy. And then as far as these 4 properties and what the type of use the request for the use would allow, again, the PUD, it would just apply to these 4 properties with the certain types of uses that we're proposing. Outside of these 4 areas, there's no changes proposed. It is a variety of uses that currently exist. For the most part, while the whole PUD is M1, most of the manufacturing tends to be located in the west, while those ancillary business areas are to the east. So these 4 subject properties are kind of central to that. So here's just some images of what like a street frontage looks like for those. Some of the businesses, there are some outliers to what I just said, of course. At the west, there's an autism school, as well as a facility for disabled children and adults, a med spa, etc. Those eastern ancillary businesses are very similar to our general business zoning. So you have things like insurance agencies, restaurant, tobacco shops, etc. So this request that's proposed is to amend the PUD, so we call it special use for substantial deviation. And 8201 T-Cross is the petitioner. So I've just highlighted here what those 4 properties are. And what's in yellow is that ComEd open parking area that's between them. The Comcast property ownership has submitted a letter of no objection to this request, so it should be noted. Here is a map of what we're talking about, these changes just for the 4 properties, to try to step back and think like how these proposed uses will serve as a bridge to what is generally to the west versus to the east. So staff proposed a use list. So certain uses that are in our zoning code, we're going to make unique to those 4, the allowances are unique to those 4 properties. So we're referring to these as transitional uses. And again, this will help address vacancy by providing some, generally some more business uses, and that will hopefully help in the future as new tenancies are sought. There are different types of hours with these uses, daytime and evening. Up on screen, my apologies, this is quite small, but it's hard to distill this all. The use list, as noted in the staff report, was only for proposed changes. So anything that, for example, remains or that is permitted, such as campus, company headquarters, that sort of thing, will remain permitted. So that's not listed in this use list and thus not part of the attachments for the request here. One thing that we did want to note is about the types of uses. We're including a new category called special needs / therapy institution. So for example, an autism school would fall under that. So the zoning code does not have that as a specific land use. We are, with a PUD request, you can add in unique phrasing, if you will, for allowances. So we're proposing that as a special use. There's one change from the staff report that I've marked in red. And there's a land use, it's kind of lengthy, but it refers to business offices that basically exclude wares that do not display wares and merchandise. It's a kind of a catch-all business use. It's a very unique one. It was only permitted, I believe, in one other zoning district in the village. So we had proposed that as a special use. Tonight, staff is proposing that this be a permitted use. So that use, the list of, referring to the list of the current tenants that was provided, note that what we're proposing as staff for our use list does not entirely reflect all the uses that are existing on those properties. Given a 1 or 3 word description, it was hard to be able to go through one by one. So there may be some uses, for example, that would require a special use permit. So staff's conditioned the motion to say that basically uses that are already operating will be considered legal nonconforming. And if they change any intensity or ownership, they would just have to come to the village for a special use permit request. An example of that would be the existing By Your Side LLC Special Needs Therapy Institution. So as far as parking, they would need to, the uses on the site would just need to meet the parking ordinance regulations. And there is as I said, a adjacent ComEd lot. The petitioner states that there is a lease that, at least the 2 properties to the west of that ComEd lot, 8201 and 8200, those would have that lease available for overflow parking. That area is not striped. It's roughly about 125,000 square feet. So parking needs, as each business will come in, they have to go through what's called the change of use or owner application as part of the zoning entitlement to get a certificate of occupancy. So when staff looks at those applications, we consider parking needs if it appears to be being met. So staff has made a condition accordingly stating if an active parking lease for ComEd is not provided, then the parking will need to be maintained. And if parking lots cannot be met for that specific use, then it must be striped and meet the standards of the zoning ordinance. So that concludes the staff presentation. I have standards up on screen.
If I may just add one thing. I did receive correspondence from the attorney for the 8151 183rd building, and she did inform me that they do not have any objection to the PUD. She did intend to send me a letter, but she had forgotten to attach it to the email, so I do expect to receive a letter of no objection as to that property as well. I just wanted to put that on the record. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to jump in real quick. I'm sorry. I'm just going to backpedal real quick just to give clarity on our zoning ordinance, just because I feel like the questions are coming. I'm just going to address them now. So for the most part, the thing what we're really trying to do here is create a transition zone between heavy manufacturing and commercial. These buildings lie in this middle area where heavy manufacturing might not now be appropriate now that these buildings are built and they have functioned more in office type uses, which are some are allowed in the M1 and sometimes they're not. They're trying to find better uses. So we found some of these commercial uses, we'll make them special use, give a little leeway there. But the M1, we turned some permitted to specials to regulate to make sure we don't get two conflicting uses, and we don't want any nuisances. So we created the list. We went back and forth with the petitioners about the types of flexibility. So while we were going through that, that's what we're really trying to do here. And one of this business offices, including but not limited to blah, 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 that was special permitted. We have 4 different lines for different types of business offices. Some are allowed in the M1, some aren't. Our code was written in the 1970s. We adapt it over time. Sometimes those things are very specific for one business from 1994, and now we're 30 years later, and we're trying to interpret the code. So we just want to give more flexibility. So that's why we're going special permitted. There are some other ones in there too, like the autism school probably was a medical clinic, not a medical office. Again, that's a whole thing we struggle with trying to interpret and stay consistent. The big thing on our jobs is to stay consistent in our interpretations. This adds a lot of clarity for this PUD specifically to make sure we have the right types of uses in these locations.
They were hairs that didn't need to be split.
Correct. At the time, they felt they probably need to be split, and now we're down the road, and we're like, what does that even mean? So we're really just trying to make I know it looks complicated, we're trying to make it easier. I just wanted to go over really briefly why we did some of the things the way we did them. I can answer more questions, we can all answer more questions about the zoning ordinance if you have them.
Okay, thank you. Is the petitioner present? Please state your name and write it down.
Yeah, George Arnold, attorney on behalf of the petitioner. Also present is Harriet Pasorka, and our names are already written down.
Okay. Can I have you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the evidence that you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Do we need to swear them in separately?
No, you can swear them in together.
Please proceed.
Thank you. So as I said, I'm the attorney on behalf of the petitioner, and the petitioner is 8201 T Cross LLC, and we are seeking approval as was laid out in detail in the staff's report. And we have nothing really to add to the staff report. We appreciate their work on this. It was good to work with them, and we think their report is very complete. So we're happy to answer any questions that this commission may have.
Okay. Commissioner Gaskell?
No question.
Commissioner Manny?
No questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Merrick?
Yeah, I mean, so I have some questions because as I look at this, so I don't fully understand what the character of these, so 2 of the buildings are completely vacant right now, have no tenants? Is that right?
Yes, those
Yeah.
are not our buildings.
Okay. So there's 2 completely vacant places that driving no tax revenue, there's nothing going on there. And people are finding it difficult to find tenants here because it's heavy manufacturing in those spaces. And we want to shift, it looks, to things that are more like service-oriented economy. So what I'm trying to get a sense of is how this changes the nature or character of the PUD, which, that chart doesn't really capture where we might end up or what makes sense. So I'd really, this may not be questions for you folks, but more for staff, is like, given the wide range of flexibility, what's a nuisance and which 2 sorts of businesses wouldn't go along in a place that allows nearly anything except for heavy manufacturing, right? That's, we're pulling that out and saying, it's special use, but yeah, just about anything else, and we'll try to make sure that things don't conflict. That's a pretty wide open Pandora's box, if you think about it, right? If the goal of zoning is to avoid that in principle at the start. And now we're gonna try to do that as we plug in individual ones to make sure that it makes sense. Does that make sense, my understanding of that? So I just don't fully understand, like, what would this look like later? And we've got one that's tucked away in the back that's still an M1 use in the same PUD, and some transitional ones that cross it, and then we're back to M1 uses. Looking at it geographically or spatially, that one M1 use that's
tucked away closest to 80th Ave doesn't make a lot of sense in that space too, right? I'm not claiming it wouldn't make sense in actuality.
Do we know what those are?
We-
What those buildings are?
We discussed that,
Yeah.
about adding these to the list. The big thing about the 4 properties, and I understand one does front 185th, it's their location off 183rd and 80th Avenue that might give, you know, a better service. You know, that road is a little bit busier and sees a little bit more traffic. And has a little more frontage. So the 2 vacant buildings are actually the ones right next to the commercial stuff. The Comcast building's empty, and the building next to it is completely empty, and they're basically built already. They don't have huge loading docks. They're actually more office uses. It would make sense to, and considering you're right next to commercial uses anyway, to kind of have those start transitioning into that. Does it change the overall initial character of the PUD? Yes, it does.
Sure.
The fact of the matter is the PUD was also adopted 25 years
Yeah,
ago.
yeah.
So there is sometimes a need to adapt to those types of new uses coming in, right? Just as we update the zoning ordinance and
Yeah,
sometimes.
and the economy is changing too, right? I get that.
So their frontage along 183rd and, you know, Sound Growler is there.
I live right across the street. from
Yeah,
there,
so you
I'm
already
well
know, like, yes, it is changing the character and maybe sometimes over the intent. That's why we also wanted to keep these at a minimum. Also why that little M1 is tucked away there. They are actually, one, they front 185th, so you don't get a ton of, and there's actually no connection to these sites through there. So they are, while it looks geographically separated, they are separated.
Yeah,
you know,
I run those things.
because you can't get through to these sites from them.
Let me ask one other question, which may seem tangential, but to help me better understand. We're redoing the traffic around this too, and I think there's going to be an extension of like the trail over that way. Is that correct, to connect up to Frankfurt's Trail?
That I don't
You're
know
the
that
wrong
one
person to
off,
ask. Okay, that's fair enough.
unless anybody else here knows.
I don't.
Okay,
I think that's a Dan question.
that is,
Okay,
and that's,
fair enough.
that's an answer I can get to you.
Yeah, okay, thanks. But that's helpful. That's part of what I want to understand is, like, I understand you're pitching the changes because you want to change the nature of it. I'm trying to understand what the end vision kind of looks like and what that impact might be. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm good.
Commissioner Hamilton?
Kind of a follow-on to that question. Anything on that list of permitted uses will automatically then be allowed, and they will not have to come back to the planning commission to get approval. Is that correct?
If we switched them to permitted uses, I think the only thing we switched to an outright permitted, oh, I don't think we did. We took
Business
mostly
offices.
everything to special.
Yeah. they don't
So we
have
took
to-
stuff that was outright permitted in like the M1
Yeah.
and made it a special use to make sure it coexists with what's already there. So let's say ammunition's, like, let's say they get indoor recreation somewhere, and then an ammunition place wants to come by. Well, they would have to come in for a special use, and you guys would say, these are two incompatible uses, and they could have some problems there.
Okay.
Whereas then the other stuff that was not permitted, we also made special uses. So in actuality, we made it actually an extra step for these buildings to get filled, but we did it with the intent that they would come on a one-on-one basis to say, here's why we deserve to be here, we're gonna like really fit in here, and here's how. Because the standards for a special use, one of the standards is that you have to meet with the community in the surrounding area. So I don't think we outright permitted anything except that one, but business offices are already permitted in that area, so.
Okay. So there is some control, that's the
Yes.
point. Yeah. Thank you.
Commissioner Sepisi?
Nothing at all, actually.
Commissioner Stoklos?
I'm good.
And I don't have anything else to add, so thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone from the audience wishing to testify to the materials presented at this hearing? I'll have you write your name and.
Yes. Yep. My name's Raleigh Lance.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the evidence that you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please proceed.
So I represent the 8151 183rd Street building in this PUD district as the real estate broker. So Conifer was the previous tenant of the building, it's 51,000 square foot building, right? Heavy office user. The change in this PUD will allow quicker lease up of this building, no doubt about it. And the control and the time we spent with the Economic Development Group and Tiffany is a benefit to the owner, and he's appreciative of all the work. And we just wanted that stated for the record. The letter will come back. We had some counsel involved this week once we got that letter to do that. So just wanted that put on the record that we are in support of this change. And I obviously can answer any questions too if anybody has.
So the ComEd space, you're likely going to have to subdivide that piece out to make
The
it work?
Conifer, yes, yeah.
Oh,
So,
sorry.
yeah, so one tenant, 51,000 square foot.
Yeah.
Wasn't a single tenant building. There was one other tenant in there. State police was in there. Yeah, that'll become a building that's probably 3 to 4 other tenants, more than likely.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have anybody else in the audience? Yes.
Bev Shoddy.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the evidence that you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please proceed.
So my name is Bev Shoddy. I am the president of Arrow Rubber Company. And we are located at 8100 West 185th Street. So we are one of the businesses that you were just referring to, just adjacent to the 8101 location. And we're a family business. My dad started the business 50 years ago, and we've been at this location since 2006. So we've had a little bit of the same concerns that you've raised in terms of the location of our business in relation to particularly the 8151 and the 8101 locations, in that with the transitional uses, we are one of 2 of those existing companies that are sort of in the middle of all of the changes. So that's why I came today, just to understand what these changes really mean, and especially the uses. I have a question about that in a minute. From what I understand so far, the changes would not impact the building itself. The structures were right up adjacent to that shared parking area. So that's my understanding with that. I don't think that there are any changes to the building structures. And it doesn't sound like there's any new properties. It's really contained with the properties that are there. I know that the red section there of your map that are already the business uses, with these transitional uses, those spaces could become all business uses, as I understand it. Why are these called transitional uses?
That is just a name we came up. So for the
But what does
most part-
transition really mean?
So the fact of the matter is they're not going to be outright permitted heavy manufacturing uses anymore, but they're also not going to be outright business uses. They're not going to be outright restaurants and service uses. They're going to be special uses. So what you actually saw before, a special use has to come before this body, and they need to prove that they fit in with the building, with the area, with everything else. So we called it a transitional area because it's no longer manufacturing, but it's also not business. So it's kind of like when you go from like commercial to townhomes to single family, the transitions out into a lower density use. So this is actually, we started calling it transitional as you're going from kind of commercial business uses, services, restaurant, to manufacturing, and this is kind of like the zone of transition along 183rd.
One thing that struck me in the land uses, the use changes that you had in this chart on page 5 of the proposal, I think you had it up there. There were 2 that made reference to manufacturing. One was permitted currently, and it's proposed to be prohibited. has to do with any use involving the manufacturing, fabricating, processing, assembling, repairing, cleaning, servicing, testing, and storing of materials, products, and goods. So I don't understand why that's prohibited, because it doesn't describe heavy manufacturing. So why is that prohibited versus the one above it is special use that also says any enclosed manufacturing, assembly, or other light industrial or research operation. So you're including as a special use, enclosed manufacturing, assembling, et cetera, but you're prohibiting any of the manufacturing, fabricating of materials, products, and goods, which is one of the businesses that we are in.
So, couple things. Again, these are just for these 4 locations. So it's not changing all the uses within the PUD. So
I
yours
understand
would
that.
still be allowed. So, and this is where I was kind of talking about interpretation, and us as professional planners for the village, we interpret the code. We have a list of definitions in the code that state what that type of business is, and then we have to interpret that when a business comes in, what land use category they fall under. So typically for us, that one that's going from permitted to prohibited, those are your heavy manufacturers. Those are things that would create, a lot of maybe, having to clean up pollution, have different specialty things like that. Whereas the one above, going from permitted to special, we're still going to allow, a laboratory or something like that, as long as it's like a light manufacturing. I'm trying to think of something off the top of my head, but research facility or something like that would be considered maybe a little bit more light manufacturing, making, masks or something like that would be kind of like light, but a heavy manufacturer or a processor could be a chemical company making large vats of chemicals, I guess. So you know what I mean? So like it's in our minds, as we were coming up with it, it's saying, hey, listen, since these are transitioning to more business service uses and we're giving them a wider berth to get some more office and some more maybe indoor recreation or some other uses, we don't want heavy manufacturing next to a CrossFit gym or something like that, but we also don't want to limit it to the point where no manufacturing can happen.
Okay. And we don't do heavy manufacturing right now. Aero Rubber is a manufacturer of industrial rubber parts and products, but we don't, work with the chemicals, and we're not heavy manufacturing, so that's not a conflict. But when I read that, I thought, well, why is that now? It doesn't say heavy manufacturing here, so it really wasn't clear in that way. So I think I understand. It is in our, I'd say, 5 to 10 year plan to expand our current building. So we own our building, and it's, as you see, it's right on the edge of the 8101 and 8151. We're in that corner there of the purple, right underneath, or just south of their transitional, that first gold section there. So we own that whole that property. We have room to grow in the back, so we would be expanding closer to the 8101 location. And also the square of the business use, it's sort of hard to describe here, but the square of the business use, the red section. So it is our plan to expand with what we're doing now. And I just want to understand what impact we would have on this change and what impact that change would have on us.
That's a fantastic question. I'm glad to hear you're thinking about expanding. So for the most part, and again, kind of like I explained, since you guys front off 185th, and there's actually no cross access between these, there shouldn't be a ton of interaction with traffic or people walking around or things like that. Your expansion would actually it would be actually more zoning code. You're an outright permitted use there within that planned unit development. So any expansion would really be more so your site specific. You own the site, you can do what you want with it as long as you meet building and zoning codes. So we have certain setbacks. Obviously, there's stormwater management. There's a whole bunch of codes that you would have to meet, but it would really just be specific to you. And your site has been operating there and has not really been affecting these buildings
Right.
anyway, so.
And as the other gentleman said, I feel like we're sort of like in a little island with all of this other commercial, potentially commercial around, you know, that little island of manufacturing of two lots.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that covers my questions. Thank you.
Do we have anybody else from the audience who would like to speak? Okay. Hearing none, I need a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
Second.
Commissioner Stoklos made the motion, Commissioner Gaskell seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Staff, will you please present the standards?
Up on screen, I have the first three of the standards for special use. So, regarding the public health, safety, whether it's injurious to use and enjoyment of other property, and not impeding the normal and orderly development of those surrounding properties. Staff has written these standards as well as the remaining standards all in support. The take-home point is that these uses will help provide a transition for the public between the manufacturing area to the west and more publicly frequented ancillary business service areas to the east. The rest of the standards are up on screen there. There's already adequate utilities, access, et cetera, as the site is already developed, as well as ingress and egress. The petitioner has also noted they will meet all other village regulations. And importantly, the last one regarding economic development, this special use to the PUD will contribute to the economic development of the community as a whole. The transitional uses will provide a variety of opportunities for businesses to occupy vacancies in the 4 subject properties. I have a motion up on screen. Also, just to note, the motion I noted in red is to additionally allow that one use we discussed about business offices to be permitted.
So to be clear, the language in red should be included in the special use
Yes.
motion?
Yeah, so when you read the motion, read what's up on screen, please.
Okay, so may I have a motion regarding special use? Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend that the village board grant a special use permit to the petitioner, Patrick Wojtek, on behalf of 8201T Cross LLC for special use for a substantial deviation for the proposed use changes to the properties 8201 West 183rd Street, 8200 West 185th Street, 8151 West 183rd Street, and 8101 West 183rd Street, all within the Tinley Crossings Corporate Center PUD in accordance with all plans and documents submitted and listed herein, and adopt the findings of fact as proposed by staff within the conditions noted in the April 4th, 2024 staff report. Amended to allow business offices, including but not limited to offices in which goods, wares, or merchandise are not displayed or sold on the premises as a permitted use.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Stoklos, seconded by Commissioner Gaskell. Lori, please call the roll.
Commissioner Gaskell.
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Yes.
Commissioner Manny.
Yes.
Commissioner Merrick.
Yes.
Commissioner Sepisi.
Yes.
Commissioner Stoklos.
Yes?
Acting Chair West.
Yes. Motion is carried. This item will go to the village board on April 18th, or 16th?
Sorry.
You
Yes,
confirm?
16.
Okay, thank you. Item 4 on the agenda is a public hearing to consider recommending that the village board grant a special use permit for a commercial indoor recreation use greater than 3,500 square feet in size to the petitioner, Terry Yurgeven, on behalf of TNT Extreme Dance in the M1 PD General Manufacturing Tinley Crossing Corporate Center PUD zoning district. May I have a motion to open the hearing?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Stoklos, seconded by Commissioner Sepisi. All those in favor of continuing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Before we proceed, I would like to note that I've received certification of the public hearing notice as being published in the local newspaper as required by state law. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter will be sworn in before they speak, but after the staff's presentation. Staff, if you could please proceed with your presentation at this time.
Thank you, Acting Chair. Subject property is located at 8201 West 183rd Street, spaces of Suite HIJ. The space is a HIJ space is a 10,428 square foot space in the building, which is 84,452 square feet. The tenant space is at the northeast corner, so where you see the star within the property, and is part of the Tinley Crossings PUD. So regarding zoning, so this is all within the PUD's zoning, which has that underlying M1 general manufacturing. So at the time of the staff report, and as currently it is prohibited. However, concurrently to this request tonight is the PUD request that if that is approved, would allow this use via special use permit. That would be for commercial, recreational, indoor use. So as far as surrounding zoning for this property, it is all M1, and the types of use is a vacant detention area, the ComEd Ed lot to the east, and commercial. So there are a number of tenants in this building. The petitioner provided, along with this request and the PUD amendment request, provided a tenant list. So that tenant list had the occupants for this subject building. The major tenants, not all of the tenants, but just the highlights, is you can see, first off, the red shows where the subject property is, HIJ. North is up. So immediately to the south of that is the Volvo Mac training facility. They have daytime hours and they're special use permit. They recently came to the village a couple of years ago for that. Then to the immediate west is the Universal Management Systems. That's a property management office. They also have daytime hours. So the two adjacent properties to the subject tenant space have daytime hours. And then notably at the west end of the building, opposite of the subject property, is Sound Growler. So they're an artisanal brewery and they have evening hours. They are permitted use. So other places that are in this building include the Crisis Center of South Suburbia, Carrie's Heating and Air Conditioning, Graphics Land, Allstate Rubber and Tool, South Shore Roofing, etc. So a special use, as I noted, is required, and this is a special use permit that, as standard with special uses, is only applicable to the operator and their submitted plans of operation that come with this request. It does not run with the land. The zoning category for that is commercial indoor recreational use. So again, if the concurrently proposed PUD amendment is approved, then this use will move from prohibited to special. The big paragraph up on the screen is just all the things that commercial indoor recreational would be. And then I noted also at the bottom, staff recommends a condition that basically the approval of the PUD's amendment is required for this use to be allowed as special. So this is all the operations. So they're, just to try to sum it up, they are relocating. So this is an existing business. They're over on West Creek Drive. Yes, they are going from a smaller space to a space that's a little more than double in size. Petitioner does wish to upgrade and expand on this space. She currently has, her dance studio has 3 studio rooms. She wants to have a bigger space to have a 4th one. So at this time, this subject property is the best that's available to her. So they're not changing anything in really what they do. They have dance classes that are recreational and competition-based. They do some accessory uses like summer camps, wedding choreography, private sessions, that sort of thing. They have 4 employees, and their total enrollment of students is 98, and it ranges from babies up to adult. They have class sizes as typical for dance studios, so usually up to 15. They have peak hours in the evenings and weeknights, so 4:30 to 7 p.m. Again, it's different types of formats. They have recreational and competition. We mentioned, the petitioner and staff mentions this to help kind of differentiate what on-site parking happens to be. So with the recreational classes, usually these are shorter classes that parents will park, the kid does the class, and they're not moving, they're going to stay. But it's not many of them that do that, and it's on only Tuesdays and Saturdays that this happens. The competition, parents generally drop the students off, they will leave the site and come back. I believe those classes tend to be more like an hour long, and the petitioner stated to me verbally that a lot of the time these, the students that they have, they often want to do additional classes, so instead of just staying for one hour class, they might stay for 2. So by offering a 4th studio, they have more of that option to stay longer. So it's not like they anticipate a big spike in enrollment, but that one student that's being dropped off by their parent, maybe it's not just 1 hour that they're there, but 2 hours, and then the parent comes back. So the hours, as I said, they're evening-based. On Saturdays, they have a few hours that they're open. They're closed on Fridays, and Sundays mostly closed, sometimes seasonally. They may run practice. And comparing that to what's nearby, Volvo and Universal Management Systems, those are the neighbors. Those would likely share that same parking field, if you will. They operate on opposing hours as daytime. Sound Growler, which would have the same kind of hours, they're not adjacent to this property. And then as far as the specific parking allowances, just to compare what they have existing to proposed, their existing location, the petitioner for this subject property that's being requested, that property management team looked into it and let me know that at the location that the petitioner's at on West Creek Drive, they have 10 spaces, and usually only 4 to 6 parents are on site. So the proposal here at the subject property, they're being offered 40 spaces. Also, that property management company, the landlord, they do let the tenants know that if there is an overflow situation, that they are allowed to park in that ComEd lot. The petitioner's representative stated that parking has not been a problem at the existing location and not anticipated. So staff has drafted a condition that basically asks for parking to be managed on site, and if not, then if an active parking lease agreement is not provided, then they have to have it on site. That concludes staff presentation. I've got the petitioners here, and they can answer questions.
Okay. Thank you. Is the petitioner present?
I also signed in already. So.
Okay. Can you please state your name for us?
Tara Jurgen.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the evidence that you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please proceed.
I just want to state that I'm Tara Jurgen, owner of T&T Extreme Dance. I've had the studio for 17 years, and we're just looking to find a new space.
So I'll see if the commission has any comments or discussion. Commissioner Gaskell?
No.
Commissioner Manny?
No comments.
Commissioner Merrick?
No.
Commissioner Hamilton?
Nope.
Commissioner Sepisi?
Just seems to me like it's gonna be a really worthwhile expansion, so I'm not.
Commissioner Stoklos?
I'm good.
And the only thing I will say is I will remind that we do have the letter of no objection from ComEd, and I wanted to make sure that also applies to this situation where if overflow parking is needed, there's not going to be any problem.
Well, just to be clear, it's not a letter of no objection from ComEd, it's a letter of no objection from Comcast as it relates to this property, but 1851 didn't want to have an opinion one way or the other as to the special use permit, so they just didn't want to go on record either supporting or opposing it. But the ComEd situation, that deals with the actual lease of the property that's in the middle.
But the large, long parking lot next to it will be available for overflow parking for folks that using the dance studio, correct?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to testify to the material presented? Okay, hearing none. Can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion.
Second.
Commissioner Gaskell, motion to close the public hearing, seconded by Commissioner Stoklos. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Staff, will you please present the standards?
Thank you. So up on screen, I've got the first three standards regarding safety, whether or not they're injurious to use of, injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property, and they will not impede normal and orderly development. So by nature, as a dance studio, that type of use does help the public health. They provide recreational use of support that supports well-being. And as far as the vacancy, the property, the proposed use will help fill a vacancy and not be a disruption to surrounding properties due to late afternoon and evening hours on weekdays and weekend hours. The remaining standards regarding utilities, ingress, egress, these are already existing. The petitioner agrees to meet all other village regulations. And then for economic development, this will contribute to the community as a whole. The proposed use provides a new service to the development and fills a vacancy. I have motion up on screen.
Okay. May I have a motion regarding the special use?
I'd like to make a motion to recommend that the village board grant a special use permit to the petitioner, Terry Yurgovann, on behalf of TNT Extreme Dance, a special use permit to operate a commercial recreational indoor use dance studio at 8201 West 183rd Street, Suite HIJ, in the M1 PD General Manufacturing Tinley Crossing PUD zoning district, according to the submitted plans, and adopt the findings of fact as proposed by the staff with the conditions noted in the April 4th, 2024 staff report.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Sepisi, seconded by Commissioner Stoklos. Lori, please call roll.
Commissioner Gaskell?
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton?
Yes.
Commissioner Manny?
Yes.
Commissioner Merrick?
Yes.
Commissioner Sepisi?
Yes.
Commissioner Stoklos?
Yes.
Acting Chair West?
Yes. The motion is carried. This item will go to the village board on April 16th. We'll now move on to receive public comment. Does anyone in the audience wish to speak? Okay, seeing no one, we will proceed to the good of the order. Staff, do you have anything for the good of the order?
Yeah, just a couple items. The zoning map went to village board, was approved, so hooray. And then the other thing, I'd like to talk a little bit about the comp plan. So in the beginning of March, we held, Lakota held focus groups with a lot of key stakeholders, businesses, organizations, developers, realtors. They held a two-day event at the Park Avenue La Crema or Crema Coffee, downtown, and got, I think we had 70 or 80 different key stakeholders that they got to interview in small groups. And then April 1st, this past Monday, we had our first, it's called Tinley Conversations at the library. So Lakota hosted kind of like an open house, open table, initial, hey, here's our project. Also, what do you think about this or that? So we actually had 4 tables of some of the bigger pillars of, like, you know, housing, transportation, amenities, economic development, those types of things. We had about, I would say, about 50 people show up, which doesn't sound like a lot, but actually for something, you know, that a lot of people don't care about until they care about it, kind of thing, that having 50 people there actually show up, and we had quite a diverse group. So it was really good to see, and they were very excited. They're going to try and spread the word. We're already setting up a meeting. Lakota, myself, and our marketing department, we're going to go over the next 5-6 months of events in the community. We're going to come up with some more outreach opportunities and events that we're going to be able to go to all summer to start getting more input on that. And they are hoping to have an existing conditions report finished by the end of May, early June. So hopefully it'll come to you by end of June, early July. Hopefully end of June. I would like to miss 4th of July. So, but yeah, that one will be also the only thing on the agenda when we get there, and it'll be an open house. I think we're actually going to do it in Carlson Center, so it can be more of like a informal open house. Sorry, you won't be able to make it, but you can watch from afar. Other than that, that's pretty much it for right now.
Jason, will we still be meeting with these people on our own, as they mentioned?
For the one, yes. So we're still working that out as well. They have some staff interviews to do as well with some certain department heads. So we're going to try and work on that this week to try and get those things hammered out. They did at the end of February, I think the very beginning of March, speak to all the village board members one-on-one. They did one-on-ones with each of them. So we're still working on other board members as well, such as yourself. So we're still planning on it. We just haven't gotten there yet.
And if it's worth saying, if my time as a commissioner is up, but I could still be a resource to help in some way
Absolutely.
in coming months, please know that I'm more than willing.
Absolutely.
Is that all?
That is all.
Great. We'll now move to adjourn the meeting. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion. Second.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Gaskell, second by Commissioner Stoklos. Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. The meeting is adjourned at 8:37.
Well
Thank you all.
done.
You said it.